Hey guys, um, this morning I read an interesting verse from Hebrews chapter 2. It is verse 15. So let's start in verse 14 just to get a little bit of context. We are people of flesh and blood. That is why Jesus became one of us. He died to destroy the devil who had power over death. Verse 15. But he also died to rescue all of us who live each day in fear of dying. And that's what I want to talk about today. Why are we afraid of dying? I have known godly men and women who there was no doubt they were God's saints. And yet when they came to the point of saying goodbye, it's not that they were afraid. They just didn't want to leave their loved ones behind. They were excited to go. Kind of like when we left Romania, we were so excited to come to the United States, but it broke our hearts to leave our loved ones behind. So for them, it was the same thing. But then there's also people that are simply afraid of dying. And why is that? Why are people afraid of dying? So I wrote a few notes and I'm just going to read them to you. One reason is because we are made of flesh and blood, and therefore we think like flesh and blood. And we know that flesh and blood will not go on to the afterlife. So it's hard for flesh and blood to think in terms of eternity. The solution for this is to think with your spirit, not with your flesh and blood. And that's hard. The Bible does say, make every thought captive. In other words, be careful what you think, how you think. Don't let your mind take you on rabbit trails that will frighten you and cause you unnecessary concern. You are flesh and blood, and you are going to think accordingly. But you have to discipline your mind to have the same mind that was in Christ, to have the same mentality as an eternal spirit, not as a physical human being. And yeah, it will take some discipline. The second reason that we're afraid of dying is because we don't know what's on the other side. We really don't. And the Bible does say that God has put in us the yearning for eternity. So we kind of get a feeling that there is we kind of know something, but we kind of don't. So the solution is get educated and go see what Jesus said about that. Read all the stuff that Jesus talked about in the Gospels. The Apostle Paul, he visited heaven. See what he has to say about it. And then I like to watch videos of people who have had clinical deaths. But I have to caution you, be careful. Because a lot of them, the devil will stick his tail in there and he will confuse you if he can and derail you. So be very careful. And these people are not intentionally malicious. Maybe they're just not familiar and they're misinterpreting things. I'll give you a funny example. When we lived in Romania, somebody said they came to visit the United States and they said, I cannot believe this. People just go up to a building and there's a little TV and they do something and money comes out at them. Anybody can do that. So you see how people can misinterpret what they see during their clinical deaths and misguide others. So that was a humorous example, of course, but like I said, the devil will stick his tail in there and it will cause you, if you're not careful, to misunderstand some of these testimonies of people who have visited heaven. All right, so moving right along. The third reason is because we don't think we're good enough or worthy of heaven, or because we are afraid of God. The solution, you need to understand that no one is good enough for heaven, and everyone should be afraid of God, because we are sinners and God does not tolerate sin, period. However, the story doesn't end there. You need to also understand that it was God who reached out to redeem us and to make a way for us to be good enough and to not be afraid of him, but he welcomes us. He says, come on, you're all my kids. You ruined yourselves. I'm here. I'm here. So the solution is, like I said, get that through your thick skull. Understand that no, you're not good enough, but yes, you can be good enough. God made you good enough, not because of who you are or what you've done, but because of Jesus. And yes, you should be afraid of God, but not in a dreadful way, rather in a loving, reverent fear, kind of like that grandpa that you just love to death, but you know you should never cross him. So you have that respectful love. So that's the healthy fear that you should have toward God. And the way you do that, you start living your life as someone who is worthy of heaven. And that starts today. That doesn't start when you get to heaven. Don't think once you get to heaven, you're going to be all saint and you're going to be all holy and you're going to be all perfect. Perfectioning begins here and now. Okay. The second one is you need to start living your life as someone who loves God and has a close relationship with God. Just as I said, like that old grandpa, that you're afraid of him, but at the same time you love him to death. Kind of like that, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So I am going to leave you with Psalm 116, verse 15, which you know it as precious is in the sight of the Lord the death of his saints. In the contemporary English version, it says, God is deeply concerned when one of his loyal people faces death. So, God doesn't understand that we're afraid, but I looked up the word precious. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. Well, first of all, let's go over the verse. It says, precious is in the sight of the Lord the death of his saints. First of all, you got to be one of his saints. If you're a sinner, his heart breaks for you, but that's the decision you made, and he's not going to force you to spend eternity with him. If you don't want to, that's your choice. That's your right. You do what you want to do. You don't have to spend eternity in heaven with God. Yeah, that's fine. That's your decision. But if you do decide that you want to spend eternity with God, then you need to pursue holiness, because, as I said, verse says, precious is in the sight of the Lord the death of his saints, of his holy ones. So you need to start working on becoming one of his holy ones. All right, let's talk about the word precious. Because remember in the beginning I said that even some of the most godly people that I've known were concerned when the time came for them to leave. Precious means, according to the Blue Letter Bible Concordance, it translates as costly, excellent, heavy, as in having great weight. It means brightness, clear. It means reputation, honorable, highly valued, glorious, splendid, weighty, and weighty, which goes back to having weight, heavy, and influential. So this is how God views your transition from the earthly existence into your eternal existence. He views it as something excellent, bright, clear, of great reputation, honorable, highly valued, glorious, splendid. Yes, he is deeply concerned because he knows that our flesh and blood is going to ache. Again, I'm going to use the comparison with when we left Romania. Our connections, our relationships, they held us back. But we were so excited to go, but we were crying to go, to leave those behind, but we were so excited. So you're torn, and God understands this, and he's deeply concerned. Nevertheless, your transition is splendid. So don't be afraid. Prepare for it. There's nothing to be afraid of if. Okay? Y'all have a great day. Bye.